Long before legends were written, and before kingdoms fell into history, war ruled the land. In Europe during the Middle Ages, the Huns are advancing west, leaving nothing but war and destruction in their path. Entire regions are burning, and no kingdom is safe. One of them is the Kingdom of Burgundy, which is struggling to survive as enemies close in from all sides. With the borders under constant threat, the king rides out with his men to defend the land. A thick fog blankets the area, forcing the army to move cautiously. As they advance, they reach a village and immediately realize something is wrong. Every home has been burned to the ground. Men, women, children, and even animals lie dead across the streets. Suddenly, a lone horse walks past them. Behind it, a hidden enemy soldier is revealed. The man fires an arrow straight at the king and escapes before anyone can react. Marshal Hagen rushes to the king's side, but it's already too late. The king is dead. A funeral is later held in the capital. Hagen is consumed by guilt as memories from his childhood resurface. As a boy, he survived a brutal attack by a beast, escaping with only a few scars. After that tragedy, the king took him in and raised him as his own. Later, while Hagen is training, Princess Kriemhild comforts him. She tells him the king's death wasn't his fault and reminds him that he is still part of their family. Soon after, Prince Gunnar ascends the throne. He gathers his council to assess the situation. Burgundy is surrounded by enemies and desperately needs allies. Gunnar decides that the only solution is for his sister to marry the king of Lombardy. Hagen delivers the news to Kriemhild. She accepts her duty without hesitation, though it's clear the decision deeply pains her. That night, during a violent storm, 11 armed riders are seen camping near the city gates. Hagen goes up to the wall to get a better look. Suddenly, he notices a shadow moving unnaturally. A voice whispers, "I know your scars," before vanishing into the darkness. The next morning, the group of riders is allowed through the gates. Soldiers immediately surround them as a precaution. From a distance, Kriemhild watches closely and notices something unsettling. One of the riders briefly changes his face. Gunnar agrees to meet their leader and learns that he is Siegfried, Prince of Xanten. Siegfried explains that his father and Gunnar's father were once allies in old wars. However, to everyone's shock, suddenly challenges Gunnar to a duel. The guards instantly move to protect their king. Siegfried laughs and agrees to stay as a guest instead. In private, Kriemhild tells Hagen what she saw and wonders if the rider could be one of the old ones, ancient beings said to haunt people's dreams. She believes her brother should have sent the group away. That night, Hagen keeps watch over the guests. A cloaked figure quietly leaves the group and wanders through the city. Hagen follows and corners the figure in an alley. When he grabs the figure's shoulder, the body collapses into nothing but sacks. Meanwhile, Siegfried drinks heavily and stumbles into the street to vomit. Hagen confronts him and orders him to leave Burgundy. Later, Hagen goes to bed, but his sleep is plagued by nightmares. He sees the mysterious, cloaked figure standing in the stables, surrounded by blood. The being tells Hagen that he knows how he got his scars. This triggers a painful memory of Hagen's parents being killed during a dragon attack. The next morning, Hagen learns that servants saw the cloaked figure in the stables and that several horses were found dead. Panic spreads throughout the city. Kriemhild tries to calm her beloved horse, but it breaks free and runs into the forest. Hagen and Kriemhild mount other horses and chase after it. The horse stops by a river, and when Kriemhild approaches to soothe it, the animal panics again and injures her hand before escaping. Hagen tends to her wound. During the quiet moment, Kriemhild admits she is unhappy about the planned marriage. Sometime later, Siegfried tells Gunnar that he is traveling because Brunhild, the queen of the Valkyries, has called to him in a dream. She is said to have the power to cast spells on men across the world without ever meeting them. The room grows tense until Siegfried suddenly laughs and claims the story is a prank. He then complains about the lack of women at the table. That evening, Siegfried bursts into Kriemhild's chamber. He tells her she is beautiful, but she calls him disrespectful and a lost soul, forcing him to leave. Meanwhile, Hagen warns Gunnar that the marriage alliance is a mistake and insists their army is strong enough on its own. Gunnar trusts him and agrees to cancel the plan. However, he admits he believes Siegfried's story about Brunhild may not have been a lie. The next morning, Gunnar informs Kriemhild that she will not be forced to marry. Overjoyed, she embraces her brother. Later, the queen speaks privately with Hagen. She says her daughter was willing to sacrifice herself for the kingdom and asks whether Hagen is capable of doing the same. Later that day, Hagen trains with the soldiers in the courtyard. Soon, Siegfried arrives with his own men and joins the training. What starts as practice quickly turns into a brutal street brawl rather than disciplined combat. Siegfried loses control and viciously beats one of his own men until the others are forced to pull him away. Laughing wildly, he then asks the Burgundian soldiers for a new opponent. Hagen steps forward. Siegfried hurls a spear at him, but Hagen catches it effortlessly. Hagen warns him that they are preparing for real war and tells him to take his games elsewhere. Their confrontation is cut short when a rider arrives with a dead body strapped to a horse. The man is from a nearby border settlement and has been stabbed to death. Moments later, Gunnar is informed that the Saxons and the Danes have turned against Burgundy. While the capital remains secure, the rest of the kingdom is defenseless and burning. Desperate for allies, Gunnar orders Hagen to form an alliance with Siegfried's group, despite Hagen's strong objections. While searching for Siegfried, Hagen spots the cloaked figure sneaking through the city once again. On the ground, he finds objects arranged in what appears to be part of a dark ritual. The cloaked figure finally reveals himself as Alberich. He tells Hagen that Siegfried once fought a dragon alone and killed it. Siegfried then bathed in the dragon's blood, which made him invulnerable. However, a leaf fell onto his back, preventing the blood from touching one small spot, his only weakness. Alberich explains that he was hired to forge a sword using the dragon's bones. Furious, he accuses Hagen of allowing Siegfried to stay in the castle, saying they have given him exactly what he was searching for, a family. In the chapel, Gunnar is praying when Siegfried and his men interrupt him. Siegfried places his sword in Gunnar's hands and declares that he will kill for him. When Hagen arrives, he finds Gunnar announcing that Siegfried is now officially their ally. Later, Hagen goes to say goodbye to Kriemhild before marching off to war. She asks why he saved her from the marriage when the kingdom desperately needs allies. Hagen refuses to answer. Kriemhild hints at the feelings between them, but Hagen insists he acted only to protect the kingdom. She replies that their home will never truly be safe. The following day, the army marches toward war. That night, they stop to camp, and Hagen discusses strategy with his men. He explains that the Saxons and Danes are brave but lack discipline, and their chaos can be exploited. Siegfried grows bored during the meeting and wanders into the forest to rest. Gunnar follows and asks him about the Valkyrie Queen. Siegfried admits that Brynhild calls to the warrior within him. In the middle of the night, Siegfried rides out alone and attacks the enemy camp. By morning, he returns carrying the severed head of the Saxon king. He explains that the Saxons are now leaderless and disorganized, making this the perfect moment to strike. The army is thrilled and eagerly follows Siegfried into battle, ignoring Hagen's warnings. A brutal fight erupts in the forest. Hagen cuts down any enemy who approaches, but his main concern is finding his king. Siegfried fights mercilessly without armor, slaughtering enemies with ease and leaving the soldiers in awe. Hagen notices a young soldier about to be killed after losing his helmet. He rushes forward, kills the attacker, and gives the boy his own helmet. The battle grows bloodier as bodies fall everywhere. Hagen sees his best archer surrounded and tries to reach him, but more enemies block his path. He watches helplessly as the archer is stabbed to death. Distracted, Hagen is struck in the face, losing his left eye. He kills the attacker but collapses moments later. The Danish king moves in to finish Hagen while Alberich watches from the shadows. At the last second, Siegfried leaps in and kills the king before he can strike. Hagen loses consciousness. When the army returns to the capital, the people cheer Siegfried's name, grateful for the victory he brought them. Siegfried throws himself into the crowd, enjoying the praise and admiration. Meanwhile, Kriemhild is tending to Hagen, who remains unconscious. Frustrated and angry, she goes looking for Siegfried and finds him drinking. She confronts him for disturbing the mourning of the fallen soldiers, but Siegfried says death is simply part of war. He believes fallen warriors should not be honored with silence, but celebrated. When he asks about Hagen, Kriemhild admits that he may be dying. Siegfried tells her that Alberich can help him. Soon after, Alberich treats Hagen's wounds, drawing a strange symbol on his body while revealing the truth. Hagen's childhood story was a lie. He was not born in Burgundy. His homeland was attacked and conquered by Gunther's father. His parents were killed, and Hagen was trapped in the flames. The dragon that appeared during the attack did not harm him. Instead, it saved him by lifting him away in its claws, which explains his scars. The king later used the dragon story to hide what truly happened. When Hagen awakens, he visits the graves of the fallen soldiers. Siegfried joins him and states that he regrets nothing. Later, in the throne room, Kriemhild speaks with Siegfried. He tells her that empires always fall and that they are not truly fighting for anything lasting. He admits he never wanted his father's throne. Kriemhild is impressed by his lack of desire for power. While changing Hagen's bandages, Kriemhild thanks Siegfried for saving his life. Hagen, however, believes Siegfried is giving people false hope. Kriemhild argues that false hope may be better than no hope at all. Over the next few days, Hagen watches painfully as Kriemhild and Siegfried grow closer. One morning, they ride into the forest and stop among the ruins of old wars. Kriemhild asks why Alberich follows Siegfried. Siegfried explains that he killed Alberich's former master. He then shares his past. Siegfried became a blacksmith's apprentice because his father wanted him to learn discipline. The blacksmith eventually sent him into the valley, hoping he would never return. After weeks of wandering, Siegfried found a sleeping dragon and believed it was the most beautiful moment of his life. Kriemhild asks why he killed it, but Siegfried refuses to answer. On their way back, Kriemhild hears a voice calling her name. Siegfried tells her to ignore it, but she turns and sees her father's body covered in vines. Horrified, she runs away. When Siegfried follows her, Kriemhild breaks down and admits she is starting to forget her father's face. She confesses that he once tried to sell her to a stranger, and for a long time, she hated him for it. Siegfried comforts her, and the two grow intimate. Later that night, Siegfried has a nightmare and nearly kills Kriemhild before waking at the last moment. Meanwhile, the Huns continue their march west under the leadership of Zell, spreading destruction everywhere. Gunther learns that Lombardy has fallen and that the kingdom desperately needs more allies. Remembering Siegfried's story, Gunther decides they must seek Queen Brunhild of Iceland. A council member delivers this news to Hagen and voices his concern. Brunhild is one of the old ones who practiced dark magic and was driven from the land. He explains that Gunther has been hearing the queen's voice in his dreams and believes Alberich may be responsible, so he has locked him up. Hagen goes to see Alberich and promises to free him if he shares what he knows about the Valkyrie queen. Alberich explains that Brunhild is invincible, and that is exactly what drew Siegfried to her. He heard her voice in his dreams and eventually traveled to Iceland. The queen took a liking to him, and they spent an entire year together. One day, Siegfried disappeared without explanation, breaking her heart. Alberich believes Siegfried still loves her. When Hagen opens the cell to free Alberich, he discovers that Alberich has vanished. The next day, Hagen warns Kriemhild not to trust Siegfried. She ignores him and announces that she will marry Siegfried to protect the kingdom. Alarmed, Hagen informs Gunther and urges him to set a condition. During dinner, Gunther gives the couple his blessing, but on one condition. Siegfried must guide him to Iceland so Gunther can ask Queen Brunhild to marry him. This way, the Valkyries would become their allies. Siegfried is furious, but he has no choice but to agree. Soon, Gunther and his men set sail. The first few days at sea are calm, but the cold soon becomes unbearable. One night, a violent storm strikes, and the crew struggles to control the ship while Siegfried laughs. The ship crashes into rocks, and several men fall into the sea, including Gunther. Hagen jumps in to save his king. By morning, Hagen washes ashore, devastated to find the bodies of his fallen comrades. Gunther survives, and the two embrace. After regrouping with Siegfried and a few survivors, the group continues on foot. They travel for days until they reach a fog-covered land. Remembering the rules from his previous visit, Siegfried orders everyone to lay down their weapons. They are surrounded by soldiers, and Siegfried asks General Senua to take him to the queen. The group is captured, tied up, and taken to a fortress beneath the volcano. As they pass through the gates, the locals scream and beat them. Bags are placed over their heads, and they lose consciousness. When Hagen wakes, his hood is removed, and he finds himself in a great hall with Senua. She explains that to win the queen's hand, Gunther must defeat Brunhild in battle. Many have tried before, and their skulls lie piled nearby. Hagen is later allowed to see Gunther, who has been given a sword by the queen. Gunther explains that Brunhild is nothing like the legends and that he must fight her. Meanwhile, Siegfried is visited by Queen Brunhild herself. She gives him a sword, and Siegfried swears that he only came as a guide and that he will marry Kriemhild. Brunhild responds that despite his words, he still came. Soon after, the group reunites outside the fortress. Hagen scolds Siegfried for failing to warn them about the rules and insists they should leave. Gunther refuses. Even Siegfried protests, admitting that not even he can defeat Brunhild. With no other option, Siegfried secretly calls upon Alberich for help. They enter a cave, where Alberich cuts Siegfried's weak spot and collects his blood. Then he pushes Hagen and Siegfried underwater while Gunther drinks the blood. Gunther writhes in pain, believing he is drowning, but suddenly gasps for air. it is revealed that Gunther has temporarily gained the strength of Hagen and Siegfried. Gunther is then prepared for battle by the guards. Senua warns him that if his blood touches the snow, Brynhild will take his head, but if her blood touches the snow, she will leave with him. Gunther faces Brynhild in combat. She proves to be an exceptional warrior and quickly knocks his helmet away. To her surprise, Gunther blocks and dodges her attacks, holding his ground. After an intense fight, blood finally falls onto the snow. Shockingly, it comes from a wound on Brynhild's leg. Gunther immediately releases the power, allowing Hagen and Siegfried to awaken in the cave. Brynhild and her warriors kneel, honoring the terms of the duel. When it is time to leave, Brynhild bids farewell to her homeland in tears. The group eventually returns to Burgundy, only for Gunther to learn that the borders have fallen. The Huns have destroyed much of the kingdom. Soldiers desert, villages collapse, and men hide to avoid conscription. With allies desperately needed, a double wedding is arranged. Siegfried and Kriemhild marry joyfully, while Brynhild and Gunther appear distant. Brynhild refuses to let the priest crown her and instead places the crown upon her own head. Later, while preparing for war, Brynhild vents her rage by brutally attacking Siegfried in front of the army. That night, Hagen notices the fear among the soldiers and gives a speech, urging them to follow the queen, promising that she will protect them. The next morning, Brynhild's volcano erupts in the distance, which the army takes as a good omen. When the battle begins, Brynhild charges forward, and the soldiers follow without hesitation. The fighting is brutal. Death covers the battlefield, but Brynhild's leadership overwhelms the enemy. Zell retreats, unable to face her power. That evening, a massive celebration is held. As the people dance and drink, Brynhild and Siegfried dance closely and eventually leave together, watched silently by Hagen. The next morning, Hagen notices Brynhild and Siegfried openly flirting. He confronts Siegfried privately, warning him that while he may tolerate this on the battlefield, Siegfried must remain loyal to Kriemhild upon returning home. Siegfried embraces Hagen and promises to honor the princess. In the following weeks, peace returns, and the kingdom begins to rebuild. However, Siegfried grows restless and asks Kriemhild to run away with him. She refuses, saying her place is with her people. Later, Kriemhild asks Hagen why he never married. Hagen replies that he had more important duties. They share a quiet moment, knowing they will never be together. In the throne room, Gunther learns that morale remains low due to labor shortages. Siegfried offers to help, but Gunther resents how the people favor him and scolds him for interfering. Gunther later confides in Hagen that Brynhild ignores him while gazing lovingly at Siegfried. He demands the truth, but Hagen insists nothing happened beyond the duel. One night at dinner, Siegfried insults a councilman until the man storms out. Furious, Gunther accuses Siegfried of never truly becoming family. When Siegfried attempts to fight, Hagen intervenes. Later, Gunther secretly follows Brynhild as she rides from the castle. The next morning, he tells Hagen that Brynhild and Siegfried have been meeting in secret. Fearing Siegfried's influence, Gunther agrees with Hagen that something must be done. Meanwhile, Siegfried apologizes to Kriemhild but continues drinking and brawling in taverns. One day, Hagen invites Siegfried on a hunt. Together, they bring down a white stag. Hagen has several chances to kill Siegfried by surprise, but chooses honor instead. He hands Siegfried a sword and demands a fair fight. The two warriors battle fiercely, disarming each other before resorting to fists. Hagen holds Siegfried underwater, but Siegfried stabs him in the leg. The fight continues until Siegfried overpowers Hagen and places his sword at his throat. Just as Siegfried prepares to strike, Gunther appears and stabs him in his weak spot, killing him. Hagen orders Gunther to ride ahead so no one knows he was present. Alberich watches from the shadows, but when Hagen approaches, the figure vanishes. Hagen returns to the city with Siegfried's body, claiming he defeated him in a duel. Kriemhild collapses in grief and reveals she is pregnant. Brunhild also breaks down in private. During the funeral, Hagen defends his actions as necessary to protect the kingdom and offers himself for punishment. Instead of executing him, Kriemhild curses Hagen to live long enough to serve Siegfried's son, a fate she deems worse than death. And with that, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching. This is Plotcore, where movies hit harder. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more epic recaps every week.